and welcome to a rather unique episode of The Angry Astronaut. I am finally back in my car, finally back on the road, and about 3 hours, maybe 2.5 to 3 hours away from South Carolina. And I'm making my first use of this. So, first of all, can I be heard? I hope that everyone can hear me, even though, hello. Hope everybody's doing well. So everybody can hear me okay? I'm assuming good. I don't have any microphone or anything hooked up right now. I only just got this little bracket and all that. So I decided that since I just released a video about about Starship and the prospect of getting to orbit, maybe a little too fast, that sort of thing, that I decided to, is it safe? No, probably not, but at the same time, I do what I can for you guys, and at the same time, I do all kinds of things with this phone while I'm on the road. It's almost a necessity, really. I watch and listen to YouTube videos about new topics, about new subject matter, that sort of thing. So really, when it comes down to it, it's not going to be a whole that I glance down every now and then, but I'm going to be focused and 10 and 2, so don't worry about me. Believe me, I've done much worse on this phone, so don't be concerned. I've become pretty good at handling this. So I hope everybody is doing well today. I hope that everybody's having a good weekend so far. And so this is a topic that's been on my mind a lot, obviously, since the last video that I released was all about this, about the prospect of when are we going to try to send Starship to orbit? When are we going to really try to launch that whole stacked monster, that sort of thing? How often is that going to be cropping up, etc.? So I was just thinking that it's probably best to have a discussion about that. And like I say, I'm asking you to trust me as far as this is concerned. I will not be getting into any wrecks, I assure you. All that having been said, how's one thing that I wanted to say, one little, and I'll mention this a few times during the course of the episode, and of course this is a long game that everybody's going to be playing, but I want to see in the comments thank you so much. A super chat comes popping up, so generous. I'm not spending any time actually looking to see who it was. Whoever it was, thank you so much. What I want to see in the comments is, what date do you think that we're going to be launching? What date do you think the whole stacked Super Heavy and Starship is going to be heading up? Is it going to head up sometime this year? Is it going to be next year? Is it going to be 2023? So in the comments section, if you can, because in the comments section, I'll be able to look at it afterwards, and people who are watching the recorded version of this will be able to make their own comments, etc. And whoever is closest when the thing goes up into orbit. So that's why I said it's a long game. When the ship goes up into orbit successfully, it doesn't have to land, just get to orbit successfully. Whoever is closest on the date, I will make a video specifically for you. You tell me what topic you want me to cover, as long as it's a space topic, and I will make that video for you. You get to choose whatever topic you want. So just put it in the comments. Make sure it's in the comments section and not in the chat section. So hope everybody's got that. I'll mention it a couple more times as we continue. So, we're really going seriously uphill. There's a big hill yet to climb in order to get Starship to orbit. Obviously, the Super Heavy is going to have to, be fully fueled, at least to get a fully loaded Starship into orbit. The Starship itself is incredibly heavy. I mean, you're talking over 100 metric tons worth of stainless steel and vehicle, engines, etc., and reaction control system, everything else that goes into a Starship. Plus, if it's loaded, it's got 100 metric tons of cargo. Plus, the most significant and most substantial thing that the Super Heavy needs to carry up to a very high altitude is 1,300 tons worth of fuel. Because keep in mind, the Starship is not going to be firing its engines until the Super Heavy has detached, which means Super Heavy needs to carry essentially 1,500 metric tons worth of stuff all the way up to, we're presuming, about the Kármán line, a little bit further before there's going to be a detach and Starship is going to engage all of its engines and burn almost all of its fuel in order to get into orbit, the vast majority of it anyway. So there is a lot going on in terms of what the Super Heavy is going to be called upon to do. It's obviously it's going to have to be much more resilient than Starship itself. We can get away with a very thin, stainless steel, as far as Starship is concerned, more like you run into in terms of the thickness of metal on your average rocket. You're not going to be able to get away with that on Super Heavy because of the sheer mass that it needs to carry on top of the enormous amount of fuel that it needs to carry. So there's a lot going on here. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit, is all of these things. When do I think, or didn't quite notice that, what will Super Heavy need? I didn't quite get that particular. If the Raptors perform to spec, mass is not an issue. It is an issue for the launch occurs. That's one thing we need to keep in mind, is that Super Heavy needs to be resilient enough, and that's one of the things that BN1 is for. The reason BN1 is not going to fly is because it needs to carry, we need to do load bearing tests. I mean, you can do as many simulations as you want, but you don't really know if it's actually going to hold up that kind of mass prior to launch for all the time that passes by. Yeah, 7 millimeters, I'd say that's a pretty good guess, actually, in terms of thickness. You need that doesn't sound like much, but that's actually pretty thick stainless steel. So that's a fair amount of mass from it as well. So at the same time, we've got to keep that in mind, is, Super Heavy is going to be a totally different animal. And by the way, for folks who are concerned about safety, once again, as I was suspecting, traffic is slowing down as I'm passing through Atlanta, getting bumper to bumper and slower, which makes things way safer. So once again, guys, please don't worry about me. Please don't worry about my fellow motorists. I have never gotten into an accident on the highway, and this is not going to be the first time. So I appreciate your concern for myself and for other people on the road, but we're going to be good. I assure you. I'm keeping more attention on the road now that I'm doing this than I do under most circumstances, because I know that there is potential danger here. So let's go ahead and move on. So that's just it. The Raptors, sure, they've got the power. They are an immensely powerful engine, but that in itself is also another thing that we need to consider, another thing that we need to worry about, or, well, I wouldn't say necessarily worry about. I would say, another consideration is the Raptors themselves. I was hoping that SN11 was going to be the first Starship, the first serial number Starship, where we haven't had to, we as in SpaceX, has not had to swap out a Raptor engine. And yet that is precisely what has happened on every single one of the every single one of the serial number Starships that have passed by so far. So, every single one of them has had to swap out an engine. So, that gives an indication that we're still not dealing with a mature engine here. We're still not dealing with an engine that is 100% developed and reliable, and it is an extremely challenging engine. Very few organizations, nations, whatever, have used this type of engine. The Russians probably being the biggest example, Roscosmos, if you want to call them that, in terms of using these sorts of engines. So that being the case, that is something that SpaceX, and that's why they're using these serial number Starships as a test bed for these engines, because they are not mature yet. We don't have a fully developed engine. By the way, I'm at a complete halt right now, so that's why I'm glancing at the screen. The Space Shuttle engine, is that a full flow? Yeah, however, it's not closed cycle. It's not quite the same thing. The RS-25 is not the same thing. It's a good engine, but it's not quite the same thing as the Raptor. It is a very, very good engine. And yeah, what you just said there, the Raptor is causing the most delays. So that being the case, that's once we start putting on a dozen Raptors, and plus the vacuum Raptors, that's a new animal too. We've got to see how those perform. Thank you so much, Easy Beasy, for the super chat. And by the way, if I call out a name, that means I am at a stop. Okay, that means that the car is stopped in traffic and I can glance at the screen. So I know everybody's worried about everybody's safety right now, but I assure you nothing's going to happen. So all of that having been said, we've got the vacuum Raptors still to consider. Those, they've been tested, but we haven't put them on a Starship yet. I really hope, and you've heard me say this a number of times, that SN-15 involves vacuum Raptors. I'm getting the impression from some inside sources that I have that maybe that's not the case. That's not the issue, but we'll see. We'll see as far as that's concerned. So, it's a big question. It's a big question in terms of what we're going to be doing. And to answer everybody's question once again about what's going on with the video, there's the guy who back in South Carolina who's in the recovery community that does a lot of commentary about recovery, and he does it from his car. He does it all the time, and that's one of the reasons why I came up with this idea. So in any event, it's hands-free, both hands on the wheel, so I feel comfortable with it, and I appreciate everybody's concern. But I was going to throw everybody a curveball today. So in the meantime, we'll keep everything going. And I am doing very well. I've got my car back. I am super happy about that. I could not be more thrilled about the whole situation. I am an extremely happy person about that. It's taken forever. It took 9 days for them to repair my car. During that time, I was trapped in the Gulf Coast that entire time, and it was nightmarish, to say the least. Not in terms of what I experienced. I really enjoyed doing what I did. I enjoyed going to Boca. I enjoyed, everything else, going to, back to the Houston Space Center, to Axiom. By the way, guys, I don't know if you can see this. There's Axiom, my shameless plug for these guys. Axiom Space. I paid a visit to their corporate headquarters, and they were kind enough to give me a water bottle and a hat and some other stuff, allow me to photograph their space station, the space station concept as it's connected with the ISS. all of this stuff, which will be in future videos. So it has been, yeah, I'm driving home right now. I've made it part way already. I'm in Atlanta. I'm only, 2 hours away, maybe 2.5, something like that. So I'm not terribly concerned. We could lose some signal here. I hope not, because I'm going under a bridge. If so, I will come back. So don't worry about that. I will be back. So we've got super heavy, and the fact that it has to be tougher, it has to be more resilient, it has to have tremendous load-bearing capabilities compared to Starship, compared to the top portion, and then we have a lot more engines, 24 or so. We keep getting numbers changing back and forth on that, but 24 engines firing in unison. Really, we haven't had a lot of that aside from the Falcon Heavy, which of course has 27 engines going simultaneously. So 27 engines going simultaneously, that's obviously a complicated thing to attempt, but the Merlin is a far more mature engine, far more tested, far more, mature, far more, resilient and reliable than the Raptor is right now. Swapping Merlins out is not something that they have to do very often with Falcon 9 launches. These days, it's become almost, just a routine. Just, launch a Falcon 9, get the booster. Oh, wow, we didn't get a booster? That's a shock, as opposed to in the past where getting a booster was a big event. Now it's just, it's business as usual to do that sort of thing. And that, of course, is what we're trying to accomplish with Starship as well, but we're not there. We're just not there at the moment. So in any event, so that is, that's what we're facing. And that's, why when I talk about my videos, when I, come out with a video like my most recent one that I came out with, that did generate a lot of, angry comments, I'm just talking about, being realistic about this whole thing. There's a lot that needs to be done when we're talking about the Super Heavy, and a lot that needs to be done when we're talking about a stacked rocket. And what we've been doing in the past, which, has often involved things blowing up, if we have a stacked Super Heavy and a stacked Starship blow up, fully fueled, then that's going to be an entirely different situation than what we've been seeing so far. And so that's, one thing I wanted to point out, and I'm certain that SpaceX is taking this into account. But at the same time, they are pushing matters. They are trying to move, quickly, because Elon has a time frame that he's working with, right? He has a time frame in terms of how fast, how rapidly he wants to get this project done. And he's trying to get to Mars. He's trying to get to Mars in a certain amount of time. And, he wants to at least send an unmanned Starship all the way to Mars by 2024. And so therefore, getting to orbit, that's just the first step. Then we need to refuel in orbit. That's a whole nother animal in itself. And unless you have a really big fuel depot, the clustering Falcon Heavies is a base multiple clustered. Yeah, interesting. It's, comparing Falcon Heavy to Starship is just, those are just two entirely different rockets. Falcon Heavy isn't made out of the same materials. The Merlin doesn't have nearly the power that the Raptor does, obviously not nearly the thrust, and it's a much more mature and reliable engine. The fact that Falcon Heavy went up successfully, brilliantly successfully back in the day when it was first launched and sent up Starman and all that. What came as a great surprise to everybody, including Elon, He himself said that he was expecting, somebody, don't worry, all here. I figured I'd be getting a lot of this, a lot of people expressing concern about all this, but I assure you, talking on the phone while I'm on the road is something I am way too accustomed to. So this is beyond easy. So in any event, comparing Falcon Heavy to Starship is, comparing cats and dogs. They're just really two entirely different things. Falcon Heavy has the advantage of being made out of much lighter material, aluminum, lithium, the vast majority of it. It's extremely light, and also it's carrying a lot less weight. You have a second stage on the Falcon Heavy that is far, far, far lighter than Starship. So obviously load-bearing capabilities is this is a totally different situation. Totally different situation than Falcon Heavy. Which is a good thing, obviously, because Falcon Heavy is only capable of so much, and Starship is the only thing that's going to get the human race to Mars, at least in large numbers. It obviously it has to be a different thing, a radically different thing. And of course, that's another reason why, I talk about exercising caution a fair amount when we're talking about dates, when we're talking about launch dates. Just if you want my opinion, I do not feel that Starship will be going to orbit until late 2022. I don't believe that they're going to be able to get everything played, all of the T's crossed and the I's dotted in order to get Starship, all the way to orbit before 2022. There's just too many things that need to be done. So that's my opinion. So we'll see what everybody else has to say about that. But that would still be getting an extremely complicated machine, an extrememely sophisticated and bleeding edge piece of hardware up to orbit way faster than anybody else has ever developed a major rocket system. I mean, that's an incredibly fast development time if indeed they get it up to orbit by the end of 2022. That's crazy fast. I'm heading north on 85, by the way. So in case anybody's wondering about that, I'm heading towards South Carolina. So that's just the nature. So anyway, that's so I'm I wanted to have a bit of a discussion about this, to see. Yeah, I wish I had one of those, by the way. A Tesla would make all the difference in the world. And I also wanted to talk March 2022. Yeah, I would say that's probably a realistic time frame. That might be doable. That's obviously only a year away, but maybe that's something that can be done. It really depends on the speed that they are able to develop Super Heavy. How fast can they get this done? That is a serious thing. Now, Boca. There have been a couple of people I've just happened to notice out of the corner of my eye who have talked about Boca. I do want to return to Boca in time for SN15. That is something that I am working towards. That has been my objective. I've been raising money for that. This trip has ended up being far more expensive than I thought it was going to. But then you guys came through. I got a lot of people who donated through PayPal, who donated, through Super Chats, etc., which made up for a lot of the difference. So it kind of got me caught back up as far as that's concerned. So I am deeply grateful. That's another thing I wanted to do in this video, was simply to express my gratitude for this for the support that I was given during this trip. You guys are simply awesome. Thank you so much for all of that. With a so SN15 is still on the board as far as I'm concerned. Still trying to get support for that, because I've learned during this trip that I can make the trip while driving. I can get to Boca on the road if I absolutely have to. So that is certainly a possibility. I've got very friendly people at Axiom Space who have invited me to come back on a tour of their facility the next time I come through Houston. So when I go to Boca, I intend to go to Houston as well. So yeah, interesting stuff. Excuse me. Once again, taking a drink from my Axiom water bottle. Thank you very much, Axiom Space, for helping me out. So anyway, that's kind of what I've been up to as of late. Do I think Starship to fourth quarter 2021? No, I do not believe that is a possibility. If anybody wants to see, by the way, I'll give you a quick look real quick. I don't know if we can actually. There we go. Not crazy. Not too crazy. Fairly open road, really. It's really, I don't have traffic all around me or anything like that. So just to give you guys a quick look at the road, it's really not that bad. So Axiom Space Station, that is, they're in Europe. Why am I forgetting? It shows that I'm getting old. They're the same ones who are building the space station modules for the Lunar Gateway. Thales Alenia. They are the ones who are currently building the modules for the Axiom Space Station. So it is an organization out of Italy, although they do have manufacturing plants in France as well. And they are Thales Alenia is building the modules for the Axiom Station, and also the ESA module for the Lunar Gateway. So they are a very busy operation. They are very good at building space station modules. They have a lot of experience with that. So Axiom picked a good outfit by far to produce their modules. And by the way, I think their timeline is very realistic, and that is to put up their first module in less than 2 years. They have a new headquarters that they're about to move into that once again I've been promised a tour of. I'm very excited about that. So these guys definitely have some serious backing. Because the offices they have now were fairly decent from what I could see, but they need more space for what they're doing at the moment. So their new headquarters is opening up. They are an extremely well-backed organization with a net worth of well over $1 billion. So that being the case, it's they definitely have a lot behind it. There are people who I have noticed who are saying, maybe third quarter, fourth quarter of this year. I admire your optimism, I really do. But given, the amount of time that's gone by since, thank you so much. Oh, thank you. I am so moved. Thank you so much for the super chat. I just saw that come up and I saw that it was a decent size. Forgive me once again. I am only just barely out of the corner of my eye looking at the screen for everybody's safety. So anyway, but thank you for supporting me. That's really nice of you. So yeah, if you look in terms of the amount of time that has gone by since Elon did that first rollout with his first prototype behind him, which, as we learned later on, had all these welding problems. The welding jobs that were done on the first couple of serial numbers were not good welding jobs. They had to get better people in there that really had a lot of experience in working with stainless steel. So a lot of things popped up with Starship development from that historic night in late 2019 when Elon rolled out Starship and was talking about getting to orbit by the end of 2020. A lot of unexpected things came up, obviously, and here we are. Thank you so much, Chris. Wow, thank you so much for being supportive as always. Once again, it's all just with any development. This isn't me ragging on SpaceX at all. Any company that's developing a new rocket system is going to come up with these kinds of problems, these sorts of unexpected, events, these sorts of complications. And so anytime you have this when you're developing new technology, it's going to delay things. And that's why we always talk about Elon time. I like Elon time. I like the fact that he's aggressive, that he's optimistic, that that he's pushing for success as rapidly as he possibly can. That is a fantastic thing that he's trying to accomplish. I could not be happier about the way Elon thinks about getting things done as rapidly as possible. However, we also need to make certain, could New Glenn beat Starship to orbit? I just saw that pop up with the orange thing. No damn way. Absolutely not. I will be very sad if New Glenn beats Starship to orbit. Not because I think Blue Origin isn't capable of it. I just don't think they deserve it. What can I say? They've been working on this thing for so long. Their latest video, as you saw from the last thing that I rolled out about them, was an embarrassment. I mean, God, I brag on them so much, but I just can't help it. They keep releasing new stuff, and I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna release something that I'm gonna say, okay, they've got something good going on here. They finally have some good progress. And instead what I see is an almost entirely empty factory. What I see is half of a fairing, a very large fairing that's going to be able to carry a tremendous amount of volume to orbit, to other places, but half a fairing. I saw half a fairing almost a year ago when they first rolled it out. Have they actually built the other half of the fairing? I don't know. I have no idea if they've built the other half of the fairing. If they have, you would think they would show it off, and all they have is a mock-up of New Glenn. A mock-up. After all this time, after all of this effort that they've put into this. Thank you. Another super chat coming up. Really appreciate it. 2 of them. My God, thank you so much. So, all of this time, all of this effort that they've put into this supposedly, but all of this step by step ferociously, there's nothing ferocious about their development process. Nothing at all. I would love to see it change. I would love to see Blue Origin turn on a dime and say, hey guys, we've been screwing this up for the last 20 years. It is time to change our development philosophy. I would love to see them actually do that. But so far, I haven't seen any evidence whatsoever that they intend to do that. Instead, we have tiny little companies like Skyrora in Scotland that are on the brink of sending satellites, microsats into orbit. Companies with no financial backing whatsoever about to send things into orbit. And yet, does Blue Origin have anything in orbit? No. They don't, and that is unacceptable. That is unforgivable. So I would be very annoyed if they happen to get something into orbit just because they have this huge head start. But maybe they will. They could, but I don't believe it. I think that Elon and his personal drive and his sense of urgency will get Starship to orbit before New Glenn, because New Glenn is looking at a target date of the end of 2022. And yeah, I'm ranting and raving about this, but I get that way when it comes to BO. I really do. They just, and they announced it after they didn't get their military funding. Oh, wow, we didn't get our military money from the government. SpaceX and ULA got it. Well, guess what, guys? They've gotten things to orbit again and again and again. And you guys have gotten absolutely zippo to orbit. And you expect money from the U.S. military? Really? No. Why should you expect that at all? It's absurd. So in any event, and then shortly after they don't get the funding, then they roll out the news that New Glenn is not going to be ready until the end of 2022. What that tells me is that Jeff Bezos is not willing to invest his personal fortune, any of it, or very little of it anyway, in getting New Glenn to orbit as rapidly as possible. He's just not willing to do it. He's got too many other things that he wants to spend his money on. What? I don't know. But that's what he's doing right now, and it's beyond frustrating. I would love to see it change, but I don't think it's going to change under his leadership. I really don't. I just don't. So in any event, rant concluded as far as that's concerned. But they've got that one engine. That's it. If their engines get the Vulcan Centaur into orbit this year, that will be their one major accomplishment, is they managed to get somebody else into orbit, a new rocket for another company into orbit. That's their big accomplishment, but that's it. That's pretty much it. So anyway, that's my rant and about them. And no, they're not going to beat Starship to orbit. No damn way. So anyway, no matter what I think about Starship or its developmental time. Oh, definitely need some water after that one. Over 600 people watching. Thank you very much. Please like, please subscribe, and please be assured that my eyes are glued to the road. I am the safest driver on the road right now, so don't worry about that. Okay, so let's see. We're getting back to getting Starship to orbit. We've talked about the Raptors. I was hoping once again that SN11 was going to be the first serial number that we had from SpaceX that wouldn't have to swap out a Raptor. But unfortunately, that was not the case. Had what appeared to be a clean static fire, and then they had to swap out a Raptor and do a static fire with that one engine. And that is unfortunate. It again suggests that there's still more work to be done on the Raptor. And, that's not a big surprise. It's a very sophisticated engine. It's an incredibly powerful engine, very powerful, almost without parallel, really. And so if you're going to make something that sophisticated and that powerful, then you have to assume single launch space station. Concepts. That's right. I'm space station could be, but it would have to be, in my opinion, part of an upper stage. I would be a bit disappointed. Well, let me put it this way: if Starship could put up a 100 metric ton station on its own, which it could, that would be a relatively small space station, about half the size, maybe 2/3 the size of ISS. If they could put something like that out, that would be good. I'd like that idea. Some of the ideas about using nanoracks and their idea of using unused second stages that are currently in orbit, converting those to space stations. That's, I think, a really good idea. I would like to definitely have that. Once again, smash that like, guys. Please smash that like, and subscribe if you're not subscribed. I would love that. Please do so. I appreciate you guys tuning in and supporting what I do. It's very nice of you. So yeah, a single launch, a single launch space station, that definitely might be a good thing. Definitely an interesting idea. SpaceX space station, just saw that pop up real quick. That doesn't seem to be where Elon is going. Elon wants to deploy space stations for somebody else. For example, the modules on the Axiom station are designed to be taken up by Falcon 9s, relatively small modules that can fit inside Falcon 9 fairings and get, sent up. So, relatively small modules, that sort of thing, but building space stations is what SpaceX is all about. Elon is talking about, he wants to be the railroad. In other words, he wants to be the cargo carrier for other people's space stations, not to build a space station himself. And I think that's good, staying focused on doing one thing and doing it very well, which is providing transportation, to orbit, to the moon, to other planets. I think that's where the focus should arrive. And yeah, we've got some, that's good. Thank you for that information. We've got restrictions on flight for Monday and Tuesday. I'm praying that we have a launch. I think that, Friday, it was really kind of over the top optimism that we had that maybe we were going to be able to launch on we might be able to launch and do a static fire on the same day. I think that was a bit of a concern. And also, I was a bit one of my Discord supporters, and I agreed with him on this. He was actually angry about having two different work teams working on the launch abort system. In other words, working on explosives. We had two teams in bucket trucks up where the launch abort system was, working on it, and that was that I have to admit that bothered me, because when you're working on something like that, in other words, where if there's a mistake, the whole rocket is going to go up in flames, you want to minimize the number of people you have there. I'm not sure why they needed two teams. I'm not an expert. Maybe there was a good reason, but if they were mostly working on the launch abort system, that I have to admit, I agree with the supporter I had, who I'm not going to call him out. Let's just say his initials are DR, but he was talking about that. He actually went on a fairly long rant, and I agree with it. I think that it was unnecessary to have two teams out there when they were working on the launch abort system, a system that could, with a mistake, with a wrong move, send the whole Starship up in flames, along with any crews unfortunate enough to be working on it at the time. So yeah, getting payloads to orbit and beyond, once Starship is operational, it opens up everything. It opens up, the idea of space stations, of working in space, of manufacturing in space, of asteroid mining, so many different concepts that all these companies are working on. But when Falcon Heavy is charging $90 million to get substantially less payload to orbit, then you need something that's going to get 100 metric tons to orbit for a lower price, which is what this is all about. So let's hope. Let's absolutely hope that is indeed the case, and it's going to be happening soon. Once again, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate all the people who are watching currently. Once again, talking about Starship getting to orbit, when we think it's going to happen. Once again, I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to bring up the contest that's happening right now in the comment section. The comment section, not in chat. Put in your guess as to when you think Starship will hit orbit, when it actually happens, when it actually gets to orbit. Then whoever came closest on this video, whoever comes closest, I will make a video specifically for you. You tell me what topic you want it to be on, as long as it's something about space, as long as it's something related to space. Even if you want it to be about UFOs, I'll make it about UFOs. Just do whatever topic you want. I will make that video specifically for you. Please put it in the comment section, not in the chat. And then when the launch date comes, when we actually get to orbit, then I will do that. I will make that video for whoever comes the closest. So make sure, once again, it's in the comments. You can throw it in the chat if you want to, but make sure it's in the comments if you want it to count. Okay, so yeah, people asking me about UFO videos. Once again, do I believe in UFOs? There's a difference between belief and do I think there's scientific proof. Do I believe UFOs could exist? Yes. Do I think there's any scientific proof for it? No, I don't. I think that there's very, credible eyewitness accounts. There are 6 different cosmonauts on 2 different missions to the Salyut 7 space station. All 6 cosmonauts claim they saw the same thing on 2 separate missions. That's pretty credible, eyewitness testimony, but at the same time, there's no scientific data to support it. We still don't have that. We've got photographs which may or may not be doctored. Technology is so good these days, you can make anything look real. So photographic evidence, not enough. We need radar tracking, and records of said radar tracking, which with the little Tic Tac things, that's one of the biggest things that people talk about is those Tic Tacs. We have footage of it, and we hear what the pilots are saying about it, but at the same time, we don't have the actual radar data from the U.S. military to support it. So all we have is, footage that doesn't show the Tic Tacs doing the things that they allegedly did, but it's not showing that specifically. And we have the pilots getting excited and talking about a whole fleet of them and stuff like that. But once again, the pilots have not given public statements about it. They haven't been interviewed, but we don't have the Tic Tacs in a lab. We don't have, the best observational data to support it. No scientific evidence. So that's my concern as far as that, as far as that is. Do I believe that UFOs could exist? Sure. There are plenty of perfectly sane, perfectly credible people who have claimed to have seen these things, and they could be right. But is there any scientific data? No, there is not. Not any credible evidence that I've seen so far. So that's where, the difference exists with me when I talk about extraterrestrial civilizations, is we have observational data of things that astronomical phenomena which defy natural explanation, but have very good artificial explanations. These things we have records of. These things we have recorded data on. And so that is the UFOs and other extraterrestrial technology and evidence about it. And absolutely, I believe there has to be, evidence about it. So we'll see. We will, and believe me, I'm the first person that hopes that UFOs pop up somewhere, to where their existence cannot be disputed, like the whole Phoenix Lights thing. That was thousands of people saw that. But if as ufologists, I don't know how you pronounce that, ufologists argue that, that aliens were trying to make themselves known, that they were flying over a heavily populated area to saying, hey guys, here we are. If that's really what they wanted to do, then why didn't they do it during the daytime? Why didn't they fly over during the daytime and make themselves really obvious, as opposed to at night when you really couldn't get a clear look at them? So, I'm still not convinced. Still not convinced. So as far as that's concerned. So, another drink. More dates coming up. Once again, please put them in the comments, whoever is the closest. And yes, we may have some time to wait. But heck, if Elon's right, we've only got a few months to wait before it goes to orbit. So who knows? Who can say what's going to happen? And by the way, yeah, I'll tell you, if you were on the space station, there'd be a lot of things that you would swear were UFOs if you didn't know what you were looking at. For example, rocket launches as observed from the space station look completely otherworldly. They look so strange. Just normal rocket engines coming from Earth look so odd and so, alien. If you didn't know what they were, you'd swear it was a UFO, but it isn't. It's us. So, there's a lot, obviously, natural or technological explanations for these things that hold up. So, we'll see. Road rage. Do I get road rage? Yes, I do. Look at who I am and how I behave. Yes, of course, I get road rage. I try to avoid it, but what can you say? All right, so we've got to get back to the topic. We have the super heavy and the difficulty with it, holding up, load bearing, that sort of thing, holding up a lot of mass, a lot more engines, a lot more fuel, therefore a lot more pressure, that sort of thing. So all of these things are definitely considerations and are complications in terms of getting, Starship to orbit. Yeah, the Fermi paradox still exists. Oh my God, you're going to get me on a tangent, but I'm going to go on that tangent. People who have made some comments about the recent thing that I released on Oumuamua, that video that I released about Oumuamua, they said, well, why would it be an alien probe? Why would they send it to us? What would be their motivation? What are the odds that during the 21st century we would just happen to see one alien probe that was sent in our direction versus the number of alien probes that would have to be sent out over the course of a civilization's history? It's impossible, it's unlikely, it's improbable, blah blah blah. And at the same time, the very same people talk about the Fermi paradox and say, look at the age of the galaxy, look at how many habitable planets there are and how many civilizations there could be, how many, and how long it would take these civilizations to spread across the galaxy in huge numbers, and therefore, where are they? Well, where are they? They just came flying through our solar system in 2017. No, maybe it wasn't with something that was manned, but it was a piece of alien technology. Yes, the odds against it were tremendous, but if there are lots and lots of alien civilizations, and if they are sending out lots and lots of different pieces of equipment, it doesn't have to be a probe. It could be a marker buoy. It could be communications relays. It could serve a lot of different purposes. It doesn't have to be a probe looking for us. And we just happen to come across it because there are a lot of them out there. There's your answer to the Fermi paradox. They are there. We just haven't been looking hard enough. And then by pure chance, we happen to see one. We happened to see one in 2017, which defies all natural explanations, but there's a very good artificial explanation for it. There's my answer to the Fermi paradox. So, to me, it's a complete contradiction. Oh, where are they? There should be alien civilizations all over the place, given the age of the galaxy. Oh, Oumuamua was an artificial object? What are the odds of that? To me, that is a completely contradictory argument, and I don't understand why people make it. Yeah, we are not alone. We aren't. I firmly believe that. There's entirely too much astronomical evidence of the things that we have observed, and of course, one of the videos that I released about it in conjunction with the Proxima signal, one of my most popular videos, it has like 250,000 views, is about that topic. I brought up just a sampling of different astronomical phenomena that we have observed that have, as of this time, defied natural explanation. Thank you so much. I appreciate the super chat. I get to ranting, and sometimes people help me out there. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So, you know, there's that particular video. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. It's about the Proxima signal, and there are so many different unique and unusual astronomical phenomena that we have stumbled across over the course of the history of us observing unusual objects in the universe, in the galaxy, that, you know, we can't just attribute all of these things to natural explanations that we have yet to explain. And by the way, if somebody wants to bring up the whole nitrogen ice thing again, I'm going to talk about it again. In order for it to have been a piece of nitrogen ice, it would have had to have been perfectly shaped. A perfectly flat Oreo cookie looking piece of nitrogen ice that is about, at most, 10-to-1 in ratio, something we have never observed in our own solar system, even though we have plenty of things, natural objects, that are made out of nitrogen or have a lot of frozen nitrogen in them in our solar system. There should have been a lot of meteoroid collisions with said objects, and therefore we should have observed something like this by now in our own solar system, but we haven't. And the notion that it was a piece of nitrogen ice that passed within 1/4 of one astronomical unit of the sun without being incinerated, melted, torn apart by the sun's gravity, and survived long enough to go all the way back out of the solar system, I find that concept to be just not, it just doesn't hold up. That's, I could use stronger language, but I won't. And that's just one example. For outgassing for a piece of nitrogen to make sense in terms of what we observed, it should have changed the rate of tumbling of said object. The outgassing is not something that just keeps happening on a sustained period of time under a very predictable schedule. That's not how outgassing works. Any outgassing that we've observed from a comet or anything else that the sun creates outgassing on, it happens in a sporadic manner, which means the acceleration would have been sporadic, and also it would have changed the tumbling. And so, that being the case, none of those things happened. The acceleration was smooth. The tumbling rate of 8 times per hour remained unchanged. How does that happen with a piece of nitrogen ice that is outgassing? How does it survive a close encounter with the sun at a distance of 1/4 of an astronomical unit? Nitrogen ice has a very low boiling point. I just don't buy it. I don't buy it. And by the way, neither does Dr. Avi Loeb. I know that I keep bringing up his name. He's one of the few guys who actually risks his tenure in his career, because we're not talking about a ufologist here. We're talking about, the former chair, and he only just stepped down, the former chair of astronomy at Harvard University, somebody who could very easily destroy his career saying things like this. So, he's not convinced either. And I'm going to support, somebody with his history of astronomy and astrophysics. The guy knows what he's talking about. He's studied the evidence in depth. And by the way, he dismisses all kinds of extraterrestrial phenomena, things that other people have, talked about as being possible results of extraterrestrial technology. He has dismissed a lot of those things. He's actually fairly conservative, and yet read his book, Extraterrestrial, by Avi Loeb, and you will have a hard time debating his position, a very difficult time. Okay, I've gone off topic a million times here, but we've still got a lot of people tuned in. thank you so much. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. Really do appreciate that. So we'll go ahead and, like I say, I'm going to get off the Oumuamua topic. Obviously, it's something I feel very strongly about, simply because I feel that we are not alone. So we'll go ahead and jump off of that. And thank you once again. Another super chat comes in. So we will move on with the talk, maybe get a little bit further back. Once again, reiterating, please put in your date, which date you think the Starship, the stacked Starship, is going to make it to orbit. And then when that time comes, I'm going to check it, and I will make a video to your specifications on the topic of your choice, as long as it's space oriented, specifically for you. So that will be the prize given out when Starship gets to orbit, and I certainly hope it's sooner rather than later. I certainly hope that it's sooner than later. Okay, we're talking about, all right, you want me to get back on this, don't you? An astronomical unit is 150 million kilometers. Do you have any idea how hot the sun is at a distance of 1/4 of one astronomical unit? All you have to do is ask anybody who would spend a few seconds of their life on the surface of Mercury. Oumuamua passed closer to the sun than Mercury. How hot is Mercury? At least the side that faces the sun. It's insanely hot. We cannot underestimate how hot the sun is at a distance of 1/4 AU. It's incredibly hot. So, and not only that, beyond blinding too, incredibly. But so once again, a piece of nitrogen ice being subjected to that kind of heat by the largest thermonuclear reaction that we have going on for light years around. Again, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Okay. So, boy, I keep trying to leave this topic. Sorry, but I had to say it. All right. I probably will sign up for Dear Moon, even though I don't think that Dear Moon is going to go by 2023. I think that it will go eventually. At the same time, I don't think that I'm necessarily a good choice, because I'm not an artist. I'm a writer, I suppose. I've done a lot of writing in my life, but I'm not a Pulitzer-winning, writer or anything like that. I'm not, best-selling author. If somebody is going to go on Dear Moon, I really think, even though it is kind of being done at random right now, I really hope that it is people who end up being artists, people who are, talented at what they do in some sort of something related to the arts, because they're the ones who are going to be able to describe a close encounter with the moon, seeing the far side of the moon in person, which only a handful of human beings have ever done. Observing that, I think, dancers in microgravity, what an experience that's going to be. Dancers getting used to microgravity and then coming up with a whole new art form in microgravity. Musicians, how are they going to perform in microgravity? That sort of thing. That famous, and yes, I will sign up. I'll sign up just because I do want to go. But at the same time, if I'm being honest, there are a lot of people who are going to be able to give a better account, a more vivid account, a more worthy account than I can. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I'll certainly throw my name in the hat, but there'll be a lot of people who are signing up for this. And I do believe that it's going to be beyond 2023. I think that the life support complexities and making Starship safe for human transport is going to involve a little bit more work than 2023. I think we are kind of talking Elon time here. I'm thinking more like 2025, which is still crazy close. That's still very, very close. No hopping going on today. No launch or anything along those lines. So anyway, I appreciate any of you folks that are saying that you'd like to see me go, that sort of thing. But wow, I don't see how I could do justice to the experience. I'd really have a hard time with it. I mean, we've heard very eloquent words being spoken by the people who went on Apollo. They did a really good job of it, and these guys were fighter pilots. They weren't, artists, and they did a really good job of it. Imagine what people who do this for a living are going to be able to accomplish. I just think that it's going to inspire the rest of the planet. It's going to make them so excited about the prospect of going to space, of seeing humanity go to space. So anyway. Felix just knows that. Felix, I think, would be a good choice. Felix is a well-spoken individual. I think that he could give a good accounting of what happened. So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I'll throw my name in the hat. Why not? But it'll be me and millions of others, and only a handful of very lucky people who get to go. And it's a little ways in the future, obviously. Still over 500 people watching. Thank you so much. Please like, please subscribe. I do appreciate your support. You guys are awesome. We're really awesome. I do appreciate that. Dear Moon, that's certainly a part of it, and getting Starship to orbit is a super important part of it, and of course, Dear Moon can be accomplished without there having to be humans on the launch pad with Starship, or humans being on Starship when Starship re-enters. All of this can be done with 2 Crew Dragons. 2 Crew Dragons could take the necessary people up to Starship once it achieves orbit, and then go to orbit, do a free return trajectory back to Earth, and then unload onto Crew Dragons again. You wouldn't necessarily have to worry about the whole Starship re-entry thing and all that sort of thing. I think that we can get past a lot of those question marks with Crew Dragon, at least as far as Dear Moon is concerned. We need more people angry about the moon. Hell yeah. We need to get back to the moon in the worst kind of way. It's been more than half a century. A huge potential available to the human race on the moon in terms of resources, in terms of, not just living space, but mining primarily, and also using it as a jumping off point to explore the rest of the solar system. The moon will be so useful to the human race as time goes on, and yet we have spent half a friggin' century, doing nothing. Spending our time in low Earth orbit. And granted, I love the space shuttle. I love the ISS, clearly, since I'm wearing an ISS shirt here. I love all of that. But at the same time, man, we should have had a base on the moon a long time ago. And yet we still haven't sent my ex to the moon. So yeah, we definitely need to get there. Mars arguably is even more important because it's a legitimate place for the human species to live. The moon would be far more difficult with its gravity issues, with complete lack of protection from radiation, being in a vacuum, that sort of thing. Mars has a greater habitability potential. So yeah, a lot of considerations as far as that's concerned. And yeah, Jupiter. let's go to Callisto or something like that. Yeah, I think that is our next jumping off point. And by the way, delta V wise, it's actually easier to get to Callisto from Mars than it is for us to get from Mars to the moon, as far as delta V is concerned. That is going to be a natural jumping off point. Mars will be to explore the outer solar system sheerly because of gravity. Enceladus, yes, I think that there are amazing things to be discovered there. No reason at all that on Europa, Enceladus, etc., that we could not have multicellular creatures of some kind living beneath the ice there. We have everything that we need. We have heat, we have salt, we have water, everything that's necessary for life to evolve, some sort of sophisticated sea life. It could definitely happen. It would be beyond frustrating. The radiation from Jupiter would be dangerous to anybody who went to Europa, for humans going to Europa. Not as much for Enceladus, and definitely not for Callisto. Callisto is outside of Jupiter's radioactive influence. So there are moons of Jupiter that are good targets for colonization. And also very achievable targets for colonization. That's something we should definitely, keep in mind for long-term planning. Mars is our first objective, obviously. I really think that we need to go there first. And then from Mars, the jumping off is to the outer solar system is going to make things a whole lot easier. Back in... If folks, I think, are talking about Challenger, Challenger should not have launched. That was an awful event. It's unnecessary, should not have happened. There are a number of people who knew damn well that morning was too cold, given how Starship was designed. They knew damn well those O-rings were not going to hold up under those circumstances, given their design. And they launched anyway because there was so much pressure. My uncle was at the Cape when that happened. He got to film and photograph Challenger going up in flames, and he returned to my aunt at the time when both of them were still alive. He returned home in a state of complete shock, in a state of complete and utter despair. He knew all of those people. He knew all of those folks who died there. And it is a horrible tragedy. A horrible tragedy what happened then and what happened with Columbia. Columbia didn't have to happen either. There were alternatives in place. We could have launched a rescue mission if we had actually paid attention to the heat shield. There are things that we could have done to save Columbia as well. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And, to bring it round full circle, we need to make sure that nothing like this, that we don't have anything similar like that happen with Starship. We need to make sure that Starship, safety margins are put into place and they are strictly adhered to, even if it is an unmanned mission. We need to make certain that a stacked Starship and a stacked Super Heavy, that it's launched under the safest of circumstances. I would prefer out on the on Phobos or Deimos, one of those oil platforms. By the way, I have had the honor, the privilege of seeing Deimos in person, seeing that platform, and that was pretty awesome, I must say, to actually see that platform that will one day be a place that we launch from. That was pretty cool, I must say. So we'll see how things develop, but there's, knowing people in Boca and having a close connection with Boca, as time goes on, as I pay more and more visits there, it allows me to get more information, which is something that's really useful to what I'm doing. So we'll see what happens. I'm definitely hoping for the best. I'm definitely hoping for the best in terms of a stacked Starship, a stacked Super Heavy. We just need to remember that this is going to be challenging, that this is going to be a challenge beyond what we're headed. No, I'm not going to Boca Chica. I'm heading home. I wish I was going to see SN11, but my car is finally fixed. I'm going back to see my son, who has not seen me in over a week. And, I only have so many more days left with him before he goes to college. So I'm going to maximize the amount of time that I get to spend with him. So that's where I'm off to right now. So in any event, I do appreciate what everybody's been doing. Thank you so much for the support that I've gotten. Once again, to reiterate, Super Heavy is going to have a lot of unique challenges in terms of load bearing, in terms of the sheer number of Raptors that are going to be on this versus the relatively small number of Raptors that we've had on Starship. There's going to be a lot of challenges involved. The load bearing, carrying 1,300 tons of fuel, 100 tons of stainless steel, and eventually 100 tons of cargo up to orbit. All of these things involve a lot of additional complexity, a lot of engineering challenges, and I suspect a lot of unexpected complications as this process continues. So I intend to be returning to Boca for SN15. I'm on my way to Colorado as well, more of a family trip, but I'm going to try to get to Sierra Nevada and to United Launch Alliance. ULA is based out of Centennial, Colorado. So while I'm there, I'm going to be trying to take advantage of that. I'm going through my contacts right now, who know people at ULA, etc. Going to do my best to bring you guys some content from there. Any place I go, I'm always looking for content for this channel. So, the best hotel in South Padre, they have the Holiday Inn Resort. It's a big multi-story hotel, definitely a good place to look for. So we will. That's a place I would recommend if you don't want to be in the midst of South Padre craziness. Then you can go to Brownsville, to Harlingen, actually, the Courtyard by Marriott. Very nice people there. So I would say that that's a good recommendation as well. And the prices are very reasonable. Again, super nice people there. So, in any event, thank you for tuning in. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you so much for the support I've gotten in terms of super chats. My PayPal is linked also in the description. Once again, everything I get off of this is going towards taking me to CSN 15 and future trips to get more content in person, because you learn so much more about this topic, about spaceflight, by seeing these things in person and talking to the people who are involved with it. So until Starship is making its way to orbit, until one of you guys is telling me what type of episode you want to see in the future so I can make this episode for you, until all of this happens, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.